Clap your hands if you are crazy, must say clap your hands.
Domino Thinking presents Natural Born Speakers with your host, Allison Donaghy. If you were born to talk and want to know how to build your career around it, then Natural Born Speakers is the show for you. Now grab your seat because this is the place to be. Now here is your host, Allison.
Hi there. Thanks for tuning in. This is Allison with Domino Thinking and Natural Born Speakers. I am actually off-site today. I'm in Vancouver, British Columbia, and oh my God, it is absolutely beautiful here. And I am so looking forward to bringing Annalisa on. She is an internationally published writer who has been writing since she could hold a crayon. I would like to see some of that poetry. She won her first contest at 9 years old. God, I could barely speak back then. And she stood bravely among senators and other dignitaries to read her poem on the State House lawn. That's pretty impressive at 9. She's gone on to write for a comedy show on the local CBS affiliate, publish screenplays, novels, short stories, and poems, and she writes for several newspapers. She is a 2015 Vermont Teacher of the Year nominee for her use of neuroscientifically proven techniques to address individual learning needs. So this is going to be great to hear about. She can't yodel. Oh, I don't know if we can have any non-yodelers on this show, but I think we might make an exception for her. And she remembers many silly kid songs, more than a person really should. So maybe we'll get to hear some of those from her too. Welcome, Annalisa. How are you?
Thank you so much, Allison. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you. So tell me, how did you get to where you are? Like, and I guess in part of the story, you're going to get to tell us where you are. But what's the journey? Because although it sounds like you came out of the womb with a pen in your hand, is there ever any? Just tell us the story of your ups and downs.
Sure. So yeah, I always had a love of writing. I was always writing and telling stories and making up jokes, much to my parents' dismay. Maybe I thought I was funnier than they did.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. 9-year-old jokes, probably not so funny. So I was always writing, telling stories. At some point when I was young, I put together a family magazine. So I'd write it and publish it on the back of the toilet. So it just kind of stayed there and people could read it. I don't know. So writing was always really exciting for me.
Sorry, I'm just getting that visual. I love it. You were amazing.
Family fun out on today's toilet. It even had ads in the back. I don't know what I advertised.
And how old were you doing this?
Well, I was writing this in crayons. So, I was 7, 8, something around then.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Probably still eating dirt. Like, really. And here you are creating your own newsletters and, all industrious like. Okay, sorry, carry on. I'm just in awe.
Thanks. I don't know that my parents were. They were very amused. They read every issue from cover to cover and told me they loved it. And so then as I got older, I was really lucky to have some great teachers who really went the extra mile to get affiliated with local newspapers and other ways of getting published. And so I got published a couple of times while I was still in my childhood. And just decided I really loved writing and studied creative writing and English under Julia Alvarez at Middlebury College, which was a hoot. She's amazing. If you haven't read Julia Alvarez's novels, please do yourself a favor and go do that now.
Shout out. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I tried my hand at a bunch of things. I got some writing jobs as time went on. I have also been a teacher for a long time. And then after I published my first novel, which was a co-authored project, I left my teaching career and said, I'm going to make a go of this. I want to be a full-time writer and a writing coach, and knock on wood of my desk here in Vermont, it's worked out for me.
That's beautiful. That's amazing. It's so inspiring being able to hear somebody have a passion, have the support for that, and then just be able to go ahead and take that brave leap to embracing what it is that they're supposed to be doing. So congratulations, most impressive.
Thank you so much, Allison. It's been quite an adventure, and I'm grateful every day that I get to do what I get to do.
Right. It's we should all be so lucky. Although I have to say I have a pretty great life, so to some extent I get that. I want to. There was something that you had said when you were speaking, and it was talking about these great teachers that you had. That their support was huge, and I just want to really bring attention to that to give it the recognition that that deserves, because my son used to write. And he had the most amazing stories. And then he had this horrible bitch of a teacher in grade 7. And I totally forget her name because I think I would have to hunt her down and maybe like shoot her or something. Maybe I shouldn't say that. I don't know. I wouldn't really. I'm joking for people who are listening. And she would put these red lines through his paper until he just stopped writing. And he doesn't write anymore. And it's such a shame. So the impact that those things can have, be it negative or positive, are huge. And it's so great for you that you were able to have those teachers who loved what they were doing enough to see that in you and encourage you. That's incredible.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really grateful, and I'm a huge promoter of the non-red pen, and I think it's really encouraging, especially for young writers. Who need that boost into a creative life.
Yeah. It was a friend of mine. She's just submitted a piece for an anthology, and she asked me to read it and give me feedback because I didn't know her whole story. So it was an opportunity for somebody who didn't know to read it for her. And I went through it, and I was making all these comments like she asked me to. And then I looked up and I saw that I'd made them all in red just because it highlighted differently than black. And I went, oh my God, I went back and I changed them all to like green or something. But it is amazing how that red stuff sticks with us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about this neuroscientifically proven technique when you were a teacher, while we're on the topic of teachers. Tell me.
Yeah, so I was really lucky to enter teaching at a time when neuroscience was really coming into the field of teaching. So I joined Teach for America, which for Canadian listeners is a program in the United States where they take recent college grads and put them in high need areas in the United States where they have difficulty hiring teachers, mostly because of poverty. So I was selected for Teach for America. I taught in Mississippi, and my school had paid a lot of money to work with a professor from Ole Miss to teach us how to integrate neuroscience in our classrooms. So my journey with neuroscience really started there and ended at MIT, where I was able to do, once I was back up in the Northeast and teaching up here, I did a lot of affiliate programs with the Boston universities, including Boston University itself, Boston College, and MIT. And I was able to go into their brain imaging lab and really look at what happens in the brain under different stimuli, and really get into the science of how learning happens best and under what circumstances, and then take that information and implement it and really be able to meet kids who, teachers might say about them, my gosh, like that kid's so lazy, or he doesn't want to work, or he just doesn't care, or whatever. And to find a way to really get kids engaged through movement, through novelty, through addressing all of their sensory needs. And of course, there's a huge translation between that work of individualizing lessons to students and then working with my writers and really seeing them as individuals and not having sort of this cookie cutter program that I work through with them, but to really individualize the activities to what they need and what they're doing, but also to use some of the actual techniques with writers. So something that you can do right now, wherever you're sitting, if you're listening, is if you draw a line from the tip of your nose down your body to the ground, so it would go in between your legs and touch the ground. That's the midline of your body. It also happens to be the midline of your brain. And so you have two hemispheres in your brain. And every time that something happens, we have electric energy that goes through our brain. It's called synapses. And anytime that we cross the midline, so if you even just like bring your arm diagonally in front of you, you're creating energy in your brain, and you've created a place that's ripe for creativity and thinking. So, if you're just standing in line or something and you just move your arms diagonally across your body, people might think you're a little bit strange, but you're waking up your brain and you're getting it energized. You're preparing it for action.
Wow, that is like super cool. So what would be the benefit of doing that?
Well,
like standing in line.
Well, I mean, if you're preparing for something, or like if you're starting to feel sleepy or you're bored, that will certainly wake you up. But I have a whole bunch of physical exercises that I run writers through that work on that principle of getting synapses moving, that help create a space that's open and ready to enter the creative process.
Oh, that's really interesting. So give me a scenario where if a person applied these techniques or didn't apply these techniques, what would the different outcomes be? Can you do that? Am I putting you on the spot here?
No, I mean, if you think about, we've all had this experience because we all went to school and we all had to sit for long periods of time. And you get bored, right? The teacher's like, blah, blah, blah. For some of us, that happens at work, but we won't admit that out loud, right? That's right. We want to keep our jobs. And, why does that happen? Well, you're not engaged. You're passive, right? I mean, you just have to sit there and listen to someone speaking. And if that speaker doesn't have a topic that's engaging or have a style that's engaging, you're probably lost. You're not interested. So how can we switch that up? Well, as soon as you're engaged, you're going to be interested, right? And so we turn that on its ear and we engage the person in the activity. So instead of me standing in front of a group of writers and saying, here's how you should write, like, let's get into it. Let's write. And let's not just write. We're not going to sit and be passive. We're going to get up and move. We're going to find ways that allow us to be creative, that involve movement, that involve accessing different parts of our brain. So if we're writers, maybe we're going to paint. If we're painters, maybe we're going to try our hand at poetry or dance, or a different form of expression. And doing all of those things, the novelty is really, really important to your brain. And it cycles through every 20 minutes and it needs something new to think about. So, just using all of those techniques to help writers really get into a good place.
That is so interesting. Now, when you, are we all born the same way and then nurture takes over, and then we develop into different ways so we have different learning styles? Or is this something like the learning styles, that's something we're born with?
I mean, that's a really interesting philosophical debate that psychologists have been dating. Since middle 19th century, when Freud sort of came onto the scene. So, I don't know. I think that there are certainly some psychologists who are very much on the nature side and very much on the nurture side. From my point of view, I don't think it matters, because ultimately I want to be able to access writers and be able to work with them where they are and not require them to change. So, for example, I'm a very strong visual person. So if you want me to understand something, I better be able to write it down, or you better write it down for me so I can see it and look at it.
We better bring those crayons.
That's right. Bring the crayon.
Yes. I love the crayons.
They need something auditory, or they need something that's tactile for them to really be able to access material. So, getting into that and really thinking about who people are and how it is that they access their creativity the best is a really important tool to being able to help people become the very best writers that they can.
Very cool. And you are doing a writer's retreat, right?
I am. So I've got a writer's retreat coming up this October from October 7th to 10th in Martha's Vineyard. So we'll be writing together for 4 days. This is a creative writing retreat. I also do retreats for entrepreneurs, but this is specifically a creative writing retreat for people who'd like to finish a book, start a book, or just write and access their creativity for 4 awesome days with some awesome people.
Mm-hmm. And is there still space available on it?
There are. We have 14 spaces total. We're about full up at this point, but we've got some openings and we'd love to hear from people.
Very cool. And how will they connect with you on that?
Sure. They can connect with me through my website. So my company is called Date, like what you go out with on a Friday night. Datewiththemuse.com, because it's time for your creative self.
Very cool. And that will is that just for the workshop?
So everything is there. People can work with me one-on-one. I do online inspiration sessions. So there's a whole bunch of us writing together, which is really, really cool. I post writing tips at least once a week up there for people who are looking to get into a good space with their writing. So there are a whole lot of resources over on datewiththemuse.com.
Oh, that's super cool. And then, I just had it and it went away. I was going to ask you about that. Oh, what is sort of like the ideal person to come to this retreat?
As I said, it's a creative writing retreat, so I think it's more specific to people who are looking to get into a creative space. The other work that I do is with entrepreneurs who are looking to write the book, be the expert who wrote the book on it. So that's a much more nonfiction, we've got a goal, we want to get a book done kind of retreat. So this retreat in Martha's Vineyard is not that. It's much more laid back. It's about being creative, becoming creative, remaining creative, and really getting into that space. Some people, certainly in the context of these retreats, might finish a portion of a book, but it's really about learning to be your best writer and feeling really confident in that. People walk away really confident and saying, that I can do some good things as a writer, and these are the things that I can do. And they feel really empowered from that experience.
Right. So it's an all skills level type?
Absolutely. Yeah. So some people who come have never published a word, and I have a couple of people who come to everything I ever do, one of whom is in the process of writing his 8th book. So it's really all levels.
Yeah. Did you want to give him a shout out?
Yes. Robert Bradford, fabulous writer. Yeah.
Very cool. I just love it when we can do shout outs for people. So you can just shamelessly do that anytime you want.
I will.
Yes. Now, you had mentioned something about being on the HuffPost Live. What was that about?
Oh, my goodness. Yes. So this is, I had just launched out into the world, and I really, probably for better, had no idea that this was kind of a big deal. But so one of the novels that I'm in the process of working on, and I won't put it out there in the world, the name of it, because it's kind of top secret, and I'll tell you why. So I wrote a novel about...
I like top secret stuff.
Top secret, shh. So it's about a woman who writes a blog about her dating experiences, and they're not favorable. So she's really down on men on the whole experience because she's just having a shitty time of it, and may or may not be related to personal experience.
Oh my God, no! We never have those. What are you talking about? You must have been really in your imaginary state when you came.
Yeah, this is totally made up. And so, but through the course of this blog, in the novel, she has basically a troll who's always kind of getting at her, and she really hates this troll, this woman who's just always at her. And it turns out that this woman is posing as a woman, is actually a man, and becomes a viable love interest. So, yeah. And so the blog, her blog, is live out there in the world as if it were a real blog. And I did that on purpose to really sort of see what would the feedback be in real time. How would people react to the kind of things that this character says? And so that's what I was interviewed about on the Huffington Post Live, was that blog.
Oh my God, that is so much fun.
Yeah, a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun to do. I'm in the process of wrapping up one women's fiction series right now, so I haven't put that book out there in the world yet, which is why I don't want to say what it is. But that's an up and coming.
Yes, we have an expecting date for that?
Not yet.
No.
Because we're working on the previous series and getting publication dates for that. But once the Calendar Girls series is out into the world, then I can work on that one.
Oh, very cool. And I guess if we're following you on your website, we'll be able to find out when that's being released, right?
Absolutely. Yes, I will send up fireworks. I will be so happy when that one comes to fruition.
And you should be, right?
Yeah, it's, birthing a book is really nerve-wracking. There's a lot of vulnerability in that, especially with a book like this, where you have a character who's pretty negative at the beginning. So we'll see how the world takes it.
I think it's good, and I think it's timely too.
Yeah, I think a lot of
it's
women
relevant
with dating,
for sure,
and probably men too. But I'm not a man, so I don't know.
Yeah, I think that all the time. Yeah, I do. I can only speak for the girl perspective. Yeah. And you're going to New York City soon, are you not?
Oh my goodness, yes. So I've been selected to speak at the Writers Digest annual convention this August. So I'm speaking on plotting and how to take advantage of plot to really enhance your chances of getting published. So I'll be talking about story structure and really nailing the pacing of your novel so that an agent will say, yes, I want you. So I'm really, really excited to be there. It's a 3-day event, and I'm actually giving away a free ticket. I've got a raffle, Allison, that's open until the end of the month. So if your listeners would like to access that raffle and join, grab a pen because I'm about to give you a website where you can go. It's datewiththemuse.com. You knew that part was already coming. datewiththemuse.com/giveaways/raffle. It's a $499 value ticket for the Writers Digest annual conference in New York City.
Wow, that is so cool. So can I put that out on social media too?
Yes, please do. Yeah.
Okay, I will. Now, tell us why this is such a big deal.
For me personally, it's a big deal because it feels like a real accomplishment as far as there will be thousands of people at this event, and the honor of being able to speak in front of that many people and talk to them about something that's really meaningful to them and help them to get where they want to be feels really huge to me. I'm sincerely honored to be a part of such an event. On a personal writer level, I can't wait to meet so many writers and agents and people interested in writing. That's really fabulous. It's going to be a very energizing weekend to be around people who love what I love.
Yeah.
And this
there's definitely a power in that.
Yeah. It's cool to hang out with people who geek out over the same stuff you geek out.
Yeah, and then you just get to vibe at this higher level, and it just reinforces all of those things that you're already knowing is just so amazing. I think it's terrific. I'm super proud of you. I don't even understand the full extent of how important this is, but I'm still super proud of you.
Oh, thank you so much, Allison. I'm thrilled. It hasn't set in yet. I've done a lot of the tasks necessary to prepare. But wow, it's an overwhelming honor, and I'm thrilled.
Yeah. Oh, that's exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So do you work just simply with people who are writing novels or expert books, or do you deal with people, because I know you said that you'd written a screenplay. Do you work with those people? Do you work with people doing poetry?
So I work with people who are looking to publish in all of the genres that I've published in, because I feel like that's really reasonable to me. I feel really comfortable with that. So yeah, as you mentioned, I've written for the big screen and the small screen. I've written poetry, short story, memoir, and nonfiction and novel. So, I've been really lucky. I've also put a whole lot of stuff out there, so maybe it was just a numbers game to get published.
Not so much. No. Looking at your resume here, I'm thinking, no, it wasn't just throwing spaghetti at the wall.
Well, I've thrown a lot of spaghetti. You don't know how messy the wall is.
Well, that's how. Yeah. Anyway, a few years ago, I wrote a screenplay.
Mm-hmm.
I started one, and then I got busy, and I just sort of threw it in my drawer. It's like the all-American novel. Mine was a screenplay, and I just got to the point where I was like, well, I have no idea what to do with it, so I'm not going to finish it. Like, is that a cop-out or what?
No, I mean, honestly, like that is the place that people come to me most frequently. Right. So they've got some kind of a start on something. So for some people, it's a concept. For some people, it's an outline. For some people, I've typed 500 pages. Now what? And I think that the now what is a big part of why people come to me. And I think that the underlying question in the now what is, the fear. Is this good enough? Is it going to be accepted? Does anybody want to publish this kind of thing? I think that's really for a lot of people what ends up being the subtext in the now what is this viable in some kind of way.
So you help take things to fruition, or you just get them ready to go out there?
Up until the point where things are published, I can help writers. So, I help them write query letters. I help them research agents. I help them research publishing houses. Whatever it takes. If that's the level that they want to go to, I can take them all the way to that end and be with them up until the point where we sign the contract and they're ready to publish.
Wow. That's like the full meal deal, isn't it, then?
Yeah. And if you think about it, as a writer, I have to be able to do all those things. Otherwise, I wouldn't be published. So,
yeah. Well, there are just people out there that then they just offer a writing workshop and go, okay, see you later. Thanks for paying. Yeah. And people go home, and within about 45 minutes, the energy wears off and they're right back to now what?
Yeah.
And being able to work with somebody like you who would take them through that whole process is pretty incredible.
Oh, well, thank you. I never thought of it that way, but that's really interesting. And by the way, I love the way that you say process.
You're not the first person that told me that. How do you say it?
Process.
Process.
That's right? Process. Process.
Yes, like that.
I love it. Carry on.
Yeah. Well, us Canadian folk.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, but back to what we were talking about. Not my accent. But I think it is, and I really want the listeners to understand how important it is to have somebody on that journey, because there's got to be an awful lot of ups and downs that people are going to go through, and then having somebody like you there with them, it has to make the writing then become the focus and not the fear so much, because there's somebody else helping battle that fear.
Yeah, I think that's true. You sort of have somebody in the trenches with you. I don't really like the term hand-holding because that is like a toddler kind of a thing. But I mean, sometimes we want our hand to be held, especially when something's difficult. And sending out that first query letter or getting that first rejection can be really scary. So I think you're right. I think that it's really helpful and important to have somebody there to really put things in perspective. There are statistics out there, these great lists for authors of how many times each famous author got rejected before their first book was published. And I mean, it's in the thousands, how many times J.K. Rowling's books got rejected. And then, she makes cajillions of dollars on the Harry Potter series. I mean, it happens.
Lives, right?
Right. I mean, she shaped an entire generation. And she was rejected thousands of times. So, it's really, as I said before, I mean, we joked about the spaghetti on the wall, but it really is a numbers game, and the resilience. And I think that having somebody there to be in your corner and to say, you know what, it's all right. Like, this happens, and we're going to send it again, or we're going to tweak the letter like this, or let's try this type of a house, or, let's rewrite the manuscript, or whatever it is that needs to happen so that people can end up being successful, however they define that.
Right. Yes. It becomes more of a team effort. It's, instead of hand holding, it can be like ghost hugging, where you can't really feel it, but you know it's there.
I'm a ghost hugger. That's what I am.
Yes. Yeah, you can use that. Yes, that's one of my favorite things to post with my friends, because my friends are so scattered. They're all over the world.
Yeah.
You just have to do that. Yeah.
Well,
So
you raise a really good point, Allison, about that. I do work with people from all over the world. So I do have some people who are local to me, but many of the people who are even local to me we're meeting digitally anyway. So I've had some really cool clients all over the world, in Singapore and Egypt and London, and it's been really cool to meet people from all over.
yeah, that would be. And that's the nice thing about being able to have this technology. In some ways it distances us, but in other ways I think it allows us to get really close to each other in ways that we never would have otherwise been available to. Mm-hmm. Super cool. So what is this stuff about the Silly Kids song? What's that all about?
So apparently not everyone has a memory for, everything that ever happened to them when they were 6, but I just remember that stuff. So I can remember lyrics to songs from when I was a kid, or, I can tell you who helped me to learn to tie my shoes. I mean, I just have this memory. So yeah, I got them up there.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, my son would absolutely love that about you, because him and I are always busting out into like really crazy songs, and people look at us like, "What are you on?" And it's like, no. And my son's 27, so this is even odder than it sounds. So I totally get and respect your ability to retain those songs.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I think I've got a firm sense of the silly, and maybe that's why they stuck with me. Although apparently I can sing along to more songs on the radio than most people, and I'm only gauging that by the funny looks that I get on road trips. How do you know this song too?
Yeah, but do you think that has to do with your level of comfort with words?
Maybe that I just retain words. That's a really good point. I never thought about it that way. I never really questioned it. I always took it for granted until I had a road trip a couple of years ago, and we were on a research trip, and so we spent a lot of time in this van together, and yeah, it turned out that I knew the words to a lot of songs on the radio.
Yeah, but it does totally make sense. Like when you're having a love affair with something like you do with writing, any language, use of the language is going to, I would suspect, be a high appeal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is super cool. We need to go on a road trip. I just want to hear all these songs now.
That's right. Yeah, we can exchange, and yeah.
Yeah. So what was it like to write on a comedy show?
It was interesting. It was a lot of fun, and it was because it was such a small event, being on a local CBS affiliate. I got to wear a lot of hats, which was really awesome. So not only was I a writer, I was also a producer and an actor. So I was responsible for a certain series of sketches, and I would also be in charge of the production of them and also casting them. So if you are very interested and go to my YouTube channel, you can see me acting very ridiculous. One of the series that we did, so the format of the show was sort of like Saturday Night Live meets David Letterman, so it was part talk show, part comedy sketch. And so I was responsible for sketches, and one of the series that I did was called The Odd Couple, and it was based on the real life relationship that I was in at the time. It's just some of the crazy things that happened. So what spawned the series was that he and I were out dancing, and he punched me, not on purpose, but just like as a dance move. And we're like, "That's fun."
Oh, yeah, that's a good dance move. I suggest people learn that one.
It's one way to break up with somebody, you know.
It is. Yeah. And that first date.
That's right. He gave me a good one right in the nose, not on purpose. And we looked at each other, like, that's hilarious. We got to do something with this. And so it became this sketch where the odd couple is at a wedding, and he punches her and she passes out. And poor me, I had to lay on the dance floor for several takes. So I'm passed out, and he's still dancing, completely oblivious to the fact that I'm laid out. So anyway, there was a whole bunch of things that were roughly based on reality. Some of it just crazy things, imaginations that we came up with. So it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to write as a team and bounce ideas off of people. Another series that I was responsible for was called What Not to Say. So what not to say in a wedding toast, and what not to say. And, oh my gosh, some of the things that people would say about what not to say. I wish we could have filmed the outtakes, because they were very, very funny and very inappropriate and not good to go to production. So
Darn.
It was a lot of fun.
That's super cool. So do you find it harder to write comedy, or like, is it specific to the person? What do you like? Because what's funny for one person is not necessarily funny to the next. It definitely seems to be a different art to it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's an interesting thing about writing in a group, because there were certainly sketches that people would bring in to the writing room that, you're like, okay, that wasn't funny, and the person would be like, but it's funny because, and like, if you have to explain it, it's not funny. It's just not going to work.
There's rules. There's rules. Don't do it.
But I mean, that just meant that it wasn't the right joke for that show. You know, right. If you spend enough time on YouTube, you find out there are all types of humor out there. You know, things that people think are funny that don't necessarily fit your sense of humor. So do I find it hard to write humor? No, I mean, I think that I took that desire to tell terrible jokes at a young age. And, I mean, there were people in high school who were still at the phase of like, that's not funny. But I thought it was funny. And now, I've written for a comedy show, and I write women's fiction, which I hope is funny. I hope my readers get a good chuckle as they read about the antics that my characters do and the things that they say. So, I enjoy it, and I hope that it brings a smile, even if it's temporary, to other people.
Right. Yeah. I think humor is such a valuable thing to give to people. I think it's a huge gift. And personally, I'd rather watch comedy over something that's going to make me cry any day of the week, because it pisses me off when movies make me cry.
I feel the same way. I kind of feel like, joy is hard to find in life, harder to find in life, I think. And, I think there are the Eeyores in life who really like to wallow in it, and that's their prerogative, but that's just not where I live. And, I'd rather focus on the positive, and try to find the joy and try to find the light in everything. And I think that my love of comedy is a part of that, because even in negative circumstances, I just had a crown put on a tooth, and I was cracking my dentist up, and she's like, I can't do this. Like, you're in pain, and you're making me laugh, And that's just where I live. I like to find the positive.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I would much rather look back on my day and be amazed at how often I laughed rather than how many times I cried. Like, I remember going to Free Willy with my sister, and she seriously started crying at the credits, like opening credits.
Oh, no.
Yeah. When Free Willy is making the, whale sound, she started crying.
Oh, no.
And I look over at her, and she is, at the time, she was living her life as a lesbian, and now she's transgender. And so she's always been this really big, butchy person. And I'm sitting next to her, and she's like sobbing away. And I'm like, you're acting like, what? Like, don't do this. It was terrible. And I think she passed it on to my son because now he cries at stuff too. And I'm just like, what did I do to deserve all this? I
All
don't
this thing.
Yeah. So here's these two tough guys just sobbing away.
Oh, goodness.
Not that there's anything wrong with guys crying. I get all that. That's not even what this is all about, just for you naysayers out there. It is just strictly about the fact that I want to go to a movie that's going to make me laugh.
Yeah, I feel the same way. And I have no problem with slapstick. Like the Marx Brothers are right up my alley. I think they're hilarious.
Yeah, lost art, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, we've sort of forgotten about that. And there's a lot of potty humor in what's coming out of Hollywood. I think there's so much room for more sophisticated humor, and we don't have any of that. So,
yeah. Although I gotta say, I just watched Deadpool like 5 times, and
all right, I'll take that as a recommendation.
Oh my God, it is epic. I absolutely love it. I love how different and clever and obnoxious and disgusting and all of that stuff that it was. And typically I'm not that person. Like, I don't want to be embarrassed when I watch a show, but this movie, I just thought it was so clever. Like, they just did an amazing job of it, in my opinion. And I'm not even a Marvel fan, although my son is turning me into one of those geeks. Like, seriously, I now know what the fourth wall is. And I'm like, I could have died happy not knowing all of this stuff about comic books, but Deadpool, loved it. So if you haven't seen it.
Well, maybe your son would like our novel. So the premise of our novel, it's called Number 2 Inc., and it's available on Amazon. So, in this world, superheroes exist, but I bet you never thought about this. Who cleans up after all those superhero battles? So Number 2 Inc. comes in, and they have pro tag assistants, and they help clean up after the battles and basically make the superheroes look good. So it tells the story of how you become a pro tag and what the challenges are in that lifestyle. So
nice. Although I think my son would much prefer to be the one flying through the buildings than cleaning up the mess. I can say that with absolute certainty. That's where he's at.
Well, that's funny because one of the characters in our series that was his motivation. He's a superhero wannabe, and it doesn't work out so well for him in the end. It ends up being a liability. But I won't. No spoilers here from the creators.
Spoilers. Okay. Yes. Well, it was, I thought it was great when they addressed it on, what was that one Will Smith was in? That superhero one. Sorry?
Well, I know he did Men in Black with the aliens. Is that
what he did one with Charlize Theron, and they were superheroes.
I don't know.
My son is going to kill me because I don't remember the name of this.
Wow, I must have been under a rock on that day. That just not fell for me at all.
Oh, Hancock.
Oh, yeah, I saw that movie.
Oops. But they actually, talked about how he left this mess in his wake, and I thought, this is perfect. Like, that's real. I get it.
Yeah.
It's good. But I'm not kind of watcher or listener. Hey, hang on, I want to know who's cleaning up, so I totally get that. Makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah. It's been fascinating, and team writing is also an interesting process of working with someone else and really trying to work towards each person's strengths and find where that space is.
Mm-hmm. I mentioned the ego part of that. Is that tough? Because if you have an idea and you think it's a good idea and the team doesn't, there needs to be that ego that's set aside in order to the, greater good or whatever. Did you find that, or is that just not something that is really reality that way? Well,
I mean, in working in television more so, but we ended up, with a core group who, the people who were in it for ego disappeared very quickly. And I think that they weren't going to get their egos fed there. I think I ran a pretty decent ship as far as how people contributed in television. But, working with Nate on our novels, he's not an ego-driven guy, and I hope I'm not an ego-driven person. And we've got a really great symbiosis between us to build an idea, always with the idea that the end goal is about the quality of our product. And so our ideas, I wouldn't say anything ever gets rejected. It's just that things evolve in a really beautiful way. So he says, what about this? And I say, what if it went like that? And he says, no, how about this? And, and at the end we're like, oh, that's awesome. And neither of us really thinks about what the steps were, like what the rejected things were along the way and how many rejected ideas each of us had. And that's never part of the discussion, because the ultimate goal is we want to have a really good story that people are interested in and really enjoy.
Right. Yeah. You're married to the outcome, right? Not necessarily the process.
Precisely.
Mm-hmm. So moving away from comedy and ego, can you tell us about the poem that you got to read on the State House lawn?
I can and I can't. I remember everything about the experience except what the poem was about.
Seriously?
Yes. I remember being there. I remember my mom taking pictures. I remember that we got to go out to dinner afterwards. It was a far drive. I think that my parents were more nervous than I was. But I cannot tell you. I think that it might have been about lilacs. That's our state flower, purple lilacs. But I don't know. I don't know. I also don't remember if my teacher went there, or if my parents had to take me by myself. I don't know. But someday, in one of these boxes that are in Mom's attic, I'll find the copy of the poem or something. It's never resurfaced. So I don't know what it was about. I don't remember the process of how mine was picked. But I do remember, that experience of being the little girl with the piece of paper, standing next to the podium because I was too short to see over the podium, reading my poem.
Nice. Well, and I think it's not the same back then as it is now, where everything's on the phone, where everything gets recorded. There's pictures and documentation of everything.
That's true.
And it's always strange because as you're talking about this, I'm like, what? No video? And I'm like, oh yeah, maybe not so much.
Yeah, no. I mean, if they'd had a way to record that, it would have been, they would have needed an extra car to drive it up there.
I don't think you're that old.
No, I do, but we definitely had no means to do that. My mom probably took pictures, with a Polaroid, back in the day.
Over time, and just don't, yeah. It's funny because I think about what people will think, because it hasn't really been long since we've had all the access to all of that stuff, like the videos and the smartphones and all that. And, it won't, even now, it's hard to imagine what it was like without it.
Yeah.
Like, we're just going to sound so archaic to our grandchildren.
Right. Well, and it's a weird dichotomy because for me, the pictures that I do have are really precious, probably because there are few of them. I mean, my mom, to be fair, documented my childhood pretty well, but it's not like kids today. I mean, you go to one event, you've got 700 photos, and maybe I've got 700 photos of my childhood in totality. Right. So it's just really interesting. There are fewer of them, so they're more precious to me, but there are also a lot of holes and things that, everyday events. My mom didn't take pictures of me with a sandcastle in the backyard kind of thing because there are only so many pictures on that film. You gotta save them.
What, there weren't pictures of all your newsletters?
No, although I know that I have hard copies of those somewhere. I've definitely seen those somewhere along the way in passing. So.
Seriously?
Oh yeah, family fun, and there's a cat I drew a picture of a cat on the front. That's in my memory up there somewhere.
That is just so brilliant. I love it. So outline to me the different ways people can work with you.
Sure. So I do one-on-ones with people to work them through a specific project, or if they're just stuck. So I've got clients who, for whatever reason, just feel like they're stuck in their lives and their creativity and they want to get out of that rut. So there are some one-on-one options. I also do editing of manuscripts, either for traditional publication or for self-publication. I can do both content and copy editing of manuscripts, and I do that for writers on an individual basis, and I also work freelance for several different publishing houses to do that. As far as groups are concerned, I do in-person groups. I've done in-person groups for corporations, so I've worked over a period of time with departments to improve their writing for clarity. And I also do groups out of my studio, so I do them in person in my studio and also online, and people can log in from anywhere in the world and write with us for 2 hours and get some real quality feedback on the progress in their writing. Of course, there's the retreat coming up in October, and also you can come see me in New York City at the Writers Digest Annual Convention.
Sounds great. Oh my God, there's all sorts of stuff. So when you're working one-on-one with people, do you just do like an hourly thing, or is it packages? How does that work?
I have 3 different packages based on what people need. So they're really based on the intensity that people want to move into a project. Okay.
Fair enough. So I'm assuming the one would be short term, and the third one would be all the way to publishing?
No, it's on an hourly basis per month. So for people who are really just looking to dabble, maybe they want to get back into creativity, they're not quite sure what they want to do with a piece, then we'll only meet in person or online for a certain number of hours per week. One of my clients right now is very ambitious to get this novel published, and so we are working together several hours a week, very intensely. I'm digging very deeply into his manuscript, and he's very ambitious about getting this published right away. So we meet regularly.
Okay, that makes sense. A person's need to complete obviously has a huge bearing. If somebody doesn't see a completion in the future, then I guess you don't meet with them nearly as often.
Right. Or, they're just not ready to be that assertive, or they're really busy with something else. And so they want to have that commitment and that accountability, but they're just not able to free up enough time. So, I'm really flexible with people.
Mm-hmm. Then do you actually get into dealing with the whole psychology behind writing and writer's block and the fears and all of that? Or is that outside of your realm?
I absolutely do, but only to the extent that people are interested in going there, right? Because, it takes a certain amount of trust. Because once we start going down the road of fear, we're going to get into the personal pretty quickly. And I'm not a counselor, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not trained, but I am a good listener, and I have a lot of skills around, as we talked about earlier, moving through teaching and really having some strategies to address what the specific fears are, how we can find strategies to really support a person to move through those fears and get to a place of success.
Right. So what has been like your oldest client? Or your youngest client, just so that we can get a range of the people where they start and what age they start at.
Oh, as like literal age?
Yeah.
Well, my youngest published client was 14.
Wow.
And I'm not going to guess at people's age, but we're going to say post-retirement. How's that? Is that...
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds so much nicer than like older than 30 or something like that. So past retirement, that is super. Well, I just want people who are listening to feel like if they've ever had that desire to write, that they are able to do it. It's not too late.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not too early, right? Like if you have a child who is like really...
Yeah.
Sorry?
It's never too soon and it's never too late.
Right. So for parents out there who are seeing a skill set in their children, it's certainly something to nurture and get in touch with you because you can help. Yes, absolutely. I love to hear from people of all ages and work with people from all ages. And I've had success. I'm knocking on wood again. Excellent. Well, yeah, it would have been so great to have known somebody like you was out there when my son was coming home with the red crosses all over his paper and then just stopped writing. to have somebody who is so in love with it that could have maybe brought him back from that edge.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it might not be too late for him. Maybe he should chat with me, and we can come up with some solutions to get him back into a better place around his thinking about writing, even if he never gets back into the writing itself, if that's a real block for him.
Yeah, I'll certainly recommend it to him, because he really had this great ability to put stories together. And I was just always kind of wowed by, where did that come from? Like, I'm the parent here. I'm supposed to be telling you stories, and here you're telling me the stories. This is great, but I don't think it's supposed to work this way. But it did, and he was really good with it. Now, you had said that you have tips and those things on your website.
I do.
And so are there tips anywhere else? Like, is there a Facebook group that people can join?
Absolutely. So in addition to the weekly writing tips, I also make videos that I post on YouTube. So I have a YouTube channel where you can watch ridiculous videos of me talking to the camera and giving tips on how to write better.
Excellent.
So I'll send you that link if you want to put it in the show notes, because YouTube channels are not friendly. It's like XYZMLKBJ. It's just ridiculous. And I also run a Facebook group that is called The Writer's Secret to Success, where I also share writing tips, and we support each other. We have word count Wednesdays where we hold each other accountable for our writing goals. We celebrate each other's writing successes, and my personal favorite, Fun Friday, where we bring out the puns. So,
oh my God, I know a guy, and he is like all over the puns, and it's just the entire time it's just spent groaning.
Well, sometimes they're groaners, and sometimes they're actually laugh out loud funny. So we've got some good ones in there.
Excellent. Yes. So we are down to the last few minutes here. So any last minute tips or words of wisdom or encouragement that you have for our listeners?
Absolutely. I think anybody can be a writer. Everyone has a story to tell. So many people, over 50% of people have writing a book on their bucket list, and so few people actually get there. And I feel really passionately about helping people to achieve their dreams and to become the writer that they want to be. And I do believe that you can do it. And I just encourage people to put pen to paper and fingers to keyboard and get it done. Do it. You can do it.
That is so encouraging.
Hey!
Yeah, I like it. And I've really liked having you as a guest. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to hang out with me and talk all about writing. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Allison. It's been such a joy to talk to you and an honor. And thank you for giving me a place to talk about what I love.
Oh, for sure. And I think when we're off the air, we're going to have to talk about my screenplay and see what I can do with that.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much. And thanks to our great producer, Nessa. Thank you so much. And until next Thursday, speak up because you have something to say and I want to hear it.
Thanks for hanging out with Natural Born Speakers. But don't stop now. Contact Allison with questions to be a guest or hire her as a speaker. Go to dominothinking.com. See you same place and time next week.